Hello, Allie Flanagan. How are you?
Hello, I am doing good. Thank you for
Yes.
having me and for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I'm on this roll of meeting with everybody that I met with at SquadUp, and we're talking about the three goals that we're going to try to get done in the next 60 days. And I appreciate you hopping on with me to share your three goals. But first, let's hear a little bit about how you got into real estate.
Yeah, so I'm here in Arizona and I was born and raised here, and I ended up getting my real estate license in 2017.
Okay.
And I just got into real estate as an agent, just selling homes traditionally. And through that, started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast and basically grew an interest in owning real estate and being kind of on the investor side of it and building wealth, because I was trying to grow my business, but then also wanted tax benefits and just to build long-term wealth. And so I bought my first rental property in 2020. And then all I knew was traditional financing. So obviously now we're in sub two, and I joined in October of 2023. And so my mindset has just completely expanded, and with everything that I've learned. But since 2020, I've been acquiring properties, single family mainly, and long-term rentals. I have an Airbnb. I have a fourplex. And so now that I've kind of experienced even just how small multifamily operates and is income producing, I've now moved more in that direction. And actually just closed on my second fourplex last week, which was my first seller financing deal, and bringing in private money. So this will kind of all tie into the goals, when we talk about that. But that's really how I got into real estate. The more that I learned, the more that I just grew very interested in the investing side of it and really being the principal and being the owner. I sold commercial real estate for about a year as well, and really kind of learned like that aspect of it. And I think at the time I kind of had imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I could actually be the investor and be the principal. I was always helping other people, at a larger scale, buy commercial property and buy rental properties. And so last year, and when I joined Sub 2, that totally changed my mindset. And now here we are on this journey. So
Nice. So what exactly do you think it was that helped you flip that switch with that imposter syndrome? Because a lot of us have had that or are currently experiencing it.
yeah, I honestly, I don't think I've heard Pace say this. I don't think it's gone away, and I don't know if it ever will. I still deal with it, not daily, but pretty often, and I think it's just that voice in your head that you constantly have to overcome. But I've found that by taking action is really where I grow in my confidence in real estate, and just having conversations and meeting people like you and meeting people in the community that are just so willing to pour into you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the biggest change, is when you know that you have a community of people that are willing to help, you're so much, you're in, you feel like you can overcome so much more. And that imposter syndrome kind of fades because you know that you have support. Whereas when you're kind of on your own and on your own island, that becomes a lot harder. And I think getting around other like-minded people that are farther along in the journey, that really is kind of the key to success, probably, and all, and not just real estate, and most things. So that's what I try to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. Community and uncomfortable action.
Yes. Much
Yes,
as, and it's never as bad as you think it's going to be, like making that
exactly.
phone call to a broker, whatever, talking to a seller, whatever it is. It's, once you do it, it's the easier it gets. So
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Mel Robbins' book, The 5 Second Rule.
yeah.
You just, everybody has that moment of hesitation, that negative voice in your head where it starts to tell you all the things you can't do or the reasons why you or not going to be good at that or succeed. And don't even give it any time or space, right? It's the action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maybe you don't even have to get to 4 when you start taking that action. And when you keep doing that over and over and over again, then now you don't even necessarily have to do the countdown. You're just taking that action, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
I have done that, and yeah, I think by the time I get between 4 and 3 is where I'm taking the action. So
Yeah, the sooner
it
you do
helps.
it, because it's the anticipation is always worse
Exactly.
than the actual doing of whatever it
Right.
is, you know? And so,
Right.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is your first goal?
Yeah, so kind of like what we talked about before we even started recording, I'm grateful that, I we did this because it really made me kind of sit down and hone in and focus on what those goals are. And Squad Up, I think, really gave me opened my mind, but also gave me a little bit of clarity on these goals, which I'm so grateful for. I think a lot of that thanks to like Cody Sanchez, hearing her speak and being the owner. And so I was always just so real estate focused, just that was my one thing. And obviously it's still the majority of what I focus on, but now I've really kind of opened my mind to acquiring businesses. And so my first big lofty goal, I guess you could say, would be to, and it's scary even saying this, I think, is to be able to acquire a business by the end of 2024.
Okay.
Um, and so what that looks like is still to be seen, I guess, exactly how I'm going to do that. But right now I'm kind of focused on health and wellness, like med spa opportunities, as well as assisted living. So that would be my first big lofty goal. And I think because the other thing that I really got clarity on at SquadUp was, you know, businesses tend to bring in, in larger cash flow, and then you offset that with real estate by buying real estate for, tax benefits for the depreciation. And so that's kind of the model that I am now going to try to implement. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that that's come up plenty of times in some of the meetings that I've been on is, you know, people will say, well, which is it? Are you going to go for business or are you going to go for real estate? And it's not an either or proposition. You really should have both, right? You have the business and then you have the real estate, right?
yeah,
And there's nothing that says that you can't have both. In fact, people are saying you should have both. Everybody's saying you should have both. So I think that's
right.
great. So when you focus, so you want a business before the end of this year, what kind of actions do you think you could be taking in the next couple of weeks, next 30 days, 60 days towards reaching that goal?
Yeah. So I think it's really no different than acquiring a real estate. It's talking to people. It's getting on the phone with business brokers, analyzing businesses, understanding the underwriting, and getting as much, going through all the trainings and the material that Pace and Cody provide on acquiring businesses. I think it really kind of starts there with the self education, but then not just doing that, accompanying that with the action. And I think, the Monday after Squad Up, I'd never called a business broker before. I've only, again, my lane has always been real estate. And so I just picked up the phone and called 3 business brokers, and just
Nice.
had a conversation with them. And so that's kind of, and literally, every conversation is like one piece that kind of moves the needle. And so I think when I think about my goals, at the end of the day, I can't necessarily control the outcome, but I can control my effort. And so I think as long as I focus on moving the needle every single day and building that momentum and talking to, people that might point me in the right direction, I can trust in the process and trust in the fact that eventually, I think it will come to fruition if I just focus on the effort. And so that's kind of where
Right.
I think I will, hopefully will lead me to accomplishing that goal.
Yeah. I think that if taking the actions, right? We started with that, right? It's taking the actions. So if you've already taken actions, talking to brokers, talking to more brokers, getting on their lists, and thinking about all of those steps that you're going to take, that's huge, right? The training, networking, Pace obviously just put out the zero down. I'm sure
Yep.
you've been checking out.
Yes.
And, and they talk about what is the best way to find those good businesses to get into and make those connections. So brokers is definitely one.
Yeah.
But I like how they dive deeper into other ways that you
Owners.
can get those, make those connections and get those businesses.
Yeah, and I think
Awesome.
it's been kind of fun for me because it's a new realm, and it's kind of like awaken those creative juices in me, which I love, because sometimes it can get monotonous in the day to day and only looking at real estate. And so I think it's kind of sparked this new and, just curiosity in me. And so my energy, going into those conversations is just genuinely interested in learning. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I don't quite know the action steps of reaching out to, owners and not,
Mm-hmm.
going that realm, but I know I'll learn that, and that will kind of be the next step, and going direct to the owners or the sellers, for those types of businesses, and building those relationships too. So it's very, early stages, but I think it's been fun. So it's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that's goal 1. What is goal 2?
Yeah. So my second goal is to do 3 more fix and flips by the end of this year.
Okay.
So I'm closed on one a couple weeks ago, and in the process of of that one. And so for me, I don't necessarily want to focus on quantity, but doing really quality flips. With the market right now, it's you have to be a little bit more conservative, and I think that's. But I do enjoy it, and so I would like to do just 3 more quality flips by the end of the year. So
Okay. And what market are you looking at doing these?
right now, just the Phoenix metro area. So mainly East Valley, but really anything like under an ARV of $1 million, and typically going direct to owner or sellers for those as well. Like the one that I closed on at SquadUp, it was sellers that I was in touch with for 5 years as like an agent. They reached out to me as an agent, and
Oh,
through the years, it was like a tough family situation. She ended up having to move into assisted living, and I was able to just come in with a solution to, purchase the home directly from them and make it a really seamless transaction. So those are the types of kind of transactions that I like to go after, in that sense for flips. So I would love to do a couple more of those.
nice. 5 years. That's some follow
Yes.
through there.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really what I learned as an agent, that you can't control people's timeline, is in a sense. All I could focus on was staying in touch and staying top of mind. But I think that's kind of translated well into like the investing side as well. It's just like building that relationship with whoever is on the other side of the transaction, and
Yep.
so that's just kind of been, I always try and look at it from the long-term perspective, with following up.
Yeah. What's been your way of staying on top of it? Like, how do you follow up? Do you have a CRM that you use to do that and send newsletters, or what does that
Yep.
look like?
Yeah. So I do have a CRM. It's called Sync, just for my agent side of the business. And I've had that for, gosh, probably 6 years. And, just a database where, there's putting them on like kind of drip campaigns where they'll get emails. And then of course I will reach out to them with phone calls. I'll do handwritten notes. I do like market snapshots so they can keep an eye on the comps in the neighborhood. We do, client parties,
Nice.
birthdays and things like that. So yeah, just trying to ultimately just build a friendship, and then the kind of the business aspect becomes a little bit easier if you just build that rapport.
Yes.
So
Right, right. And it's going to be the same when you're trying to buy somebody's business, right? They've built
yes.
it, that's their baby.
Mhm.
They're going to want to know that they're putting it in good hands,
Right.
right? So, yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we've been through number 1 and number 2. What is your third goal?
Yeah, so my third goal is so I think I mentioned I closed on a fourplex last week. And so the goal is to really kind of move when it comes to buy and hold, because I do typically hold, that is like my strategy, I guess. I like to buy and hold, would be to buy another multifamily, but with it being minimum 20 units.
Ooh.
So trying to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone and scale up, a little bit. And I think that's another limiting belief in the kind of that mindset imposter syndrome when it comes to multifamily, because a lot of people that you talk to, there's not a huge difference between even a fourplex and, maybe even 50,
Mhm.
like it's maybe a little bit, but it's still management and of the property. And, so I think just getting out of my comfort zone and kind of forcing myself to not look at anything smaller. That would be
Yeah.
my goal. Buying that creatively or on seller finance before the end of the year.
Ooh. Okay, so you mentioned before the end of the year. So what are you focusing on in the next 30, 60 days for that?
Yeah, so kind of the same thing with the business side, and just building those broker relationships,
Okay.
but also going direct to seller. That's how the fourplex I closed on last week was actually the owner from the first one that I bought, and I kept in touch with her from 2020
Ooh.
when I bought the first one. And so again, it all just goes back to the relationship, and I think um, you get. I could be wrong, but I think you typically get a little bit better deals, talking directly to the seller and structuring kind of a win-win with the seller,
Yeah.
and figuring out, exactly what is beneficial to them when it comes to something like seller finance. And so that's my goal, is to get strategic on the type of property, that I'm going after,
Mhm.
high equity properties, and really just focusing on the Phoenix and Tucson markets right now. So
Okay. All right. And then are you looking for partners? How are you going to finance?
yeah, good question. So yes, I know that to go bigger, it can only go so far on your own. And on the
Yeah.
my second fourplex, I brought in private money for my first time. And so,
Okay.
yes, my goal is to start building those relationships with private money partners that want to kind of tap in and be a part of, growing within multifamily. So yeah, my goal is to continue to, I guess, again, get out of my comfort zone, raise capital, have those conversations, and bring people in to be able to scale. And I had a good taste of that, on the fourplex. And even with that person, my goal is to nurture that relationship and, kind of just have this be our first project together. And then when we have a bigger opportunity come along, like her come along with me, and we kind of build something together. So
Yeah.
mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've been through your 3 goals that you're working on, and these are really longer term goals,
Mhm.
but we've discussed what you're going to do in the next 30, 60 days towards reaching those goals. And I was going to ask, how do people get a hold of you? I see at Allie K Flanagan. Is that for both Facebook and Instagram?
I think Facebook is just Allie Flanagan, my first and last name. So that's for Instagram. So yeah, you can message me there. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. And so yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to
Yeah.
circle back in 60 days and discuss how you're doing on these goals and what your next steps are. And so everybody stay tuned and reach out. right? Because it sounds like, let's see, private money partners, brokers,
Mhm.
sellers, anybody looking to sell their businesses,
Mhm.
or they have a 20 or more unit multifamily, reach
Mhm.
out to Allie. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
love to learn from people too that are farther along in the journey and build those
Ooh,
relationships. So, yeah.
absolutely. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.